For many people today, the croissant is the ultimate symbol of French baking. Its golden layers, delicate crispness, and rich buttery aroma have made it one of the world's most beloved pastries. Whether enjoyed in a Parisian cafe, a hotel breakfast buffet, or a neighborhood bakery halfway around the globe, the croissant seems inseparable from French culture. But surprisingly, the story of the croissant did not begin in France. Its journey stretches across centuries, involving religious traditions, royal courts, international politics, and revolutionary baking techniques. So today we're diving into the history and evolution of croissant. How did it come from ritual bread to today's French delicacy? Join us today right here on History of Food. The roots of the croissant can be traced back to Central Europe, particularly Austria. Long before the flaky pastry we know today existed, bakers were producing crescent-shaped breads known as Kipferl. Historical records suggest that variations of Kipferl were being baked as early as the 13th century. Unlike modern croissants, these breads were generally dense, sweet, and made without the hundreds of delicate layers that characterize croissants today. The crescent shape itself carried symbolic meaning. In medieval Europe, crescent-shaped breads often appeared during religious celebrations and festive occasions. Some were served at weddings, harvest festivals, and church holidays. The shape may have represented the moon, prosperity, or spiritual symbolism depending on the region. In many ways, these early crescent breads were ritual foods, connecting communities through shared traditions and celebrations. One of the most famous stories surrounding the croissant's origins involves the Siege of Vienna in 1683. According to legend, bakers working through the night heard Ottoman soldiers attempting to tunnel beneath the city walls. Their warning allegedly helped defenders repel the attack. To commemorate the victory, the bakers supposedly created crescent-shaped pastries resembling the symbol found on Ottoman flags. It is a compelling story, but historians remain skeptical. There is little contemporary evidence supporting the tale, and crescent-shaped breads existed long before the siege. Still, the legend became enormously popular because it offered a dramatic and patriotic explanation for the pastry's distinctive shape. Whether true or not, the story became permanently attached to croissant folklore. The real transformation began in the 19th century. In 1839, an Austrian artillery officer named August Zang opened a Viennese bakery in Paris called the Boulangerie Viennoise. Parisians quickly became fascinated by Viennese baked goods, including Kipferl and other Austrian specialties. The bakery introduced French customers to flavors and techniques that were unfamiliar yet irresistible. French bakers soon began adapting these imported pastries. Rather than simply copying Austrian recipes, they experimented with local ingredients and methods. The most important innovation involved laminated dough, a technique that creates dozens or even hundreds of thin layers by repeatedly folding butter into dough. During baking, water in the butter turns to steam, forcing the layers apart and creating the airy, flaky texture that defines the modern croissant. Lamination was not entirely new. Bakers had already been using similar techniques for pastries such as puff pastry. However, applying the process to crescent-shaped Viennese breads produced something entirely different. The result was lighter, richer, and dramatically more delicate than traditional Kipferl. By the late 19th century, the croissant had begun evolving into a uniquely French creation. It became increasingly associated with Parisian cafes and urban life. Yet even then, croissants were still relatively expensive treats. Butter was costly, and producing laminated dough required considerable skill and labor. Every fold mattered. A mistake in temperature or timing could ruin an entire batch. The croissant's rise accelerated during the 20th century. Improvements in refrigeration transformed pastry production. Before refrigeration, maintaining the correct temperature for laminated dough was extremely challenging. Butter could melt too quickly, destroying the carefully formed layers. Refrigeration allowed bakers greater control and consistency, making large-scale croissant production possible. After World War II, France experienced significant economic growth, and café culture flourished. The croissant gradually became part of the classic French breakfast. Unlike the large breakfasts common in some countries, many French people preferred something lighter, a croissant accompanied by coffee, hot chocolate, or café au lait. This daily ritual helped cement the pastry's place in French identity. Meanwhile, the croissant was spreading beyond France. International tourism played a major role. Visitors who experienced French cafes often returned home eager to recreate the experience. Hotels, bakeries, and restaurants worldwide began offering croissants as symbols of sophistication and European culinary tradition. The croissant has also become a showcase for culinary skill. Professional bakers often spend years mastering lamination. A perfect croissant requires balancing numerous factors, including butter quality, dough hydration, fermentation time, folding technique, and baking temperature. The finest croissants display a honeycomb-like interior structure with dozens of airy pockets created during fermentation and baking. Today, billions of croissants are consumed annually across the globe. Yet despite their widespread popularity, they still retain an aura of craftsmanship and elegance. A well-made croissant represents centuries of cultural exchange, technological innovation, and culinary evolution. What began as a simple crescent-shaped ritual bread in medieval Europe eventually passed through Austrian bakeries, French culinary experimentation, industrial modernization, and global adaptation. Along the way, it transformed from a ceremonial food into one of the world's most recognizable pastries. The next time you bite into a croissant and hear that delicate crackle of flaky layers, you're experiencing more than just breakfast. You're tasting a story that spans centuries, a story shaped by bakers, empires, legends, science, and tradition. Few foods carry such a rich and unexpected history within something so light and seemingly simple. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching.